Hello, hello, I click explore window. So it's currently empty, but if I use the storage that we can now. And now of the screen, any of these others, there aren't actually keywords for them. Storage, and then this function takes a dark blue color. So how about 2 weeks ago? Ainge XL said, "Hey, I have an idea for new series. What about how to make game like Piggy? It's pretty popular. You might get some views." Suddenly my eyes lit up with the possibilities. This was it. This was my big break. Alvin Blocks, I'm with you. And then Breggy Bread commented, "You want him to teach you how to make a copy game? Trash." And so I shelved the idea. Then, 1 week later, Ainge XL tried again. Unperturbed, he commented, "Hey, I have idea for new series. Challenge accepted." But there was only one problem. What on earth is a Piggy game? And so I made my way to the front page, and there she was, Piggy in all her glory. Only 250,000 players. Pretty small fry, really. Clearly, if I want to make my own version, I'm going to have to do some research. So, in the name of science, let's give it a play and see what we need to do for our own version. Now the first thing that struck me is the menu here, which is simple but looks pretty cool. Uses the camera and has this neat little transition when you go to click play and then you vote on your map and game mode and such. Now once the game actually started, I was then a little bit confused as the game doesn't tell you anything, doesn't explain what you need to do other than the obvious, to escape from the monster. So I just spent the first few minutes running around like a headless chicken, just completely confused. Eventually I figured out there's different items you can pick up, but it still wasn't clear exactly how or where to use them. Eventually I found a gun, so I excitedly picked this up and used to take on the pig thing. However, I was pretty disappointed when I didn't actually kill the enemy and win the game like I'd hoped might happen, but merely paused his attack for a few seconds. After this, I continued running around like a headless chicken and I couldn't figure out where I need to go. This basically continued until I got trapped and killed. Great first attempt there. After this, the game puts you in a kind of waiting area where you can watch other players. I desperately watched Disney Mickey 64 in the hopes of finding the keys to becoming a pro gamer. Clearly, she had more of a clue what was going on than me. So I watched her use the keys to unlock areas, which then gave her items. It's kind of a cycle that seems to rinse and repeat in the game. She then, near the entrance to one door, walked through it and disappeared. Okay then. Then she got teleported next to me inside the lobby area. And I initially thought she somehow died as well. But after watching another player do it, I realised that she'd actually won by escaping. But again, this really isn't made clear in the game. It could really benefit from adding some sort of contextual information to tell you what's happening, or at least give me a clue for a noob like myself. Finally, the only player left was Scorpio Girl 070. Somehow she's managed to spawn herself outside of the map completely, and I watched as both her and the monster played out a tragic dance where they were both stuck on opposite sides of an invisible wall. Hooray for bug-free gaming. But now, it was my turn. The research was over, and it was time to remake this game, and I wanted to complete it as quick as possible. This wasn't going to be easy, and the clock was ticking. Admittedly, this probably shouldn't have been the first priority, but I started out by building my own monster to set the theme. I didn't want it to be a complete copy of Piggy, so instead of creating a pig, I thought my game would involve maybe some kind of evil teddy bear creation. I set to work creating this monstrosity, and for a moment it started to more resemble Snoo, the alien from Reddit, if you know what that is. So I added a few blood effects, and it started to actually look quite scary, but either way, it was certainly no work of art. But then, disaster struck. For some reason, I'd made the mistake of trying to use unions. And I think what happened is when I saved the game and came back a few minutes later, maybe my internet connection had dropped perhaps, but either way the unions were gone. They were just empty boxes of what had once been. I tried reloading the save and even deleted the cache as directed by a dev forum post, but to no avail. It was hardly a great creation anyway, so I just decided to cut my loss at this point. And as frustrating as it was, at least it was an opportunity to make something better.
Let's go help people customize and save with Liberty Mutual. Okay, who sat at my desk?
And so here we have it, this was version 2. I actually really like how this little guy came out. He looks so cute. Don't you just want to hug him? No, never mind. Next, I need to transform it from a boring model into a character we can actually use in a game. So I set about naming each individual part inside the model, giving them all a unique name. This is important because it's part of a process known as rigging, which enables the character to be used for animation. So to rig the Teddy, I like to use a plugin called Rig Edit from Archmage. I use the Pro version, but you can get the light version for free as well. You also need to make sure you have a part called Humanoid Root Part, which you can see I almost forgot. This ensures Roblox recognises it as a humanoid and allows movement and animation and all that fun stuff to work. So you can make this roughly in the centre of the model, make it transparent, and then you can start your rigging, which I did by adding welds between the parts I don't want to animate but need to stick together. So this means things like welding the eyes and ears to the head, along with the hands to the arms, and so on. The plugin then shows you little lines that show you what parts are welded together. Once we've created our welds, I can then move on to adding the joints. These are the parts we actually want to animate. I'm keeping things pretty simple, so I just have joints for the neck, shoulders and hips. As we add these parts together, you can see this simple skeleton structure begins to form inside the model, and once everything is connected, it is available. Until we eventually build it with something that looks a bit like an animation. It wasn't very spectacular, but I ended up throwing together these walk and attack animations that I think will pass. All I had to do then was click to export the animations to Roblox, and we can then use them for our game. First though, I just wanted to check everything was rigged right, so I renamed them all to starter character. Now it's essential that you name it perfectly like that. If you use different case or different spelling, then it's not going to work. And then you place it inside the starter player folder, and that'll make your player then spawn in as whatever model you've got. So this seemed to work at first, but then I realised the movement was all messed up, and my teddy bear seemed to be moving sideways like a crab. So to fix this, I then went back, edited the humanoid root part, and rotated it round so that its forward face was pointing forwards. So as I changed everything around, I also had to go back and reset some of the joints while I was doing this. Now I could click test, and when I spawned in, I was finally facing the right way and could actually move around the base plate a bit. Although it's without an animation, so it looks a bit boring. Next, to get those animations we made working. Now Roblox uses an animation script that gets added by default to every character. I figured as our homemade character was fairly simple, we could just adapt the existing script and swap in our own animations. As it happens, the Roblox wiki actually has a page on this very topic, so I just did a cheeky copy and paste of our own animations link into that script and hit play again. Sadly though, it wasn't quite that easy, as I then got a warning that the animation script couldn't find the left shoulder. This threw me a little bit as I checked and thought, well, it is named left shoulder. Eventually though, I realised we need to go back to our model, change the name of the joints, adding in spaces to ensure they perfectly match those contained in the default Roblox character. Once this was changed, I spawned back in excited to see it work, but no. Instead, we were just greeted by this bobbing head animation. The head seemed to taunt us almost. There was no leg action, just this head moving from side to side. So after yet more digging, I came across the Humanoid Hip Height property. By setting this to match the approximate height of the top of my character's legs, the humanoid object can then properly compute its magic, and yes, we were finally in business. But more problems. Now our animation was finally playing, but only once. When we first press the key, it goes, but then it won't loop after that. Thankfully though, this is a fairly easy fix by returning back to the animation and just ensuring the loop button was enabled and then re-uploading it. So we spawned back in, yet again, and would you look at that, we finally got our walking teddy of death. Progress at last. Right, what's next to do? Oh, yeah, actually make the game. Will I succeed, or maybe just give up and die? Subscribe to find out in the next episode. Hello again, you fine people. We are back with another video, but first I must bring you some bad news. You may remember in our last episode, we boldly launched this series in our noble claim to gain views, but then the comments trickled in. The problem is, man, a bunch of people already made these. Yes, Alvin Blocks is making a series. Gnomecode's work is going to be useless! And so it seems our arch enemy, Alvin Blocks, has discovered our plan to usurp him, and has countered my attack by publishing his own piggy videos. And so, in the face of incredible odds, I gave in. Oh wait, no I didn't, because the good news is we've just hit 1,000 subscribers, and we're just getting started. Our game is not a remake, this isn't Piggy, this isn't Granny, this is Teddy. And so let's continue where we left off. Okay, so in the last video we got our Teddy walking around the map so the player could control them. But what if only one player is in the game? Well, ideally we could do with some kind of bot to control the monster so they can still play even if they're on their own. Nobody wants to be stuck around waiting in a lobby after all. So what we're going to do is we're going to create some kind of basic AI system for our monster here. So click on the model, I'm going to add in a new script and we're going to call this AI. And although this might seem like a bit complex, actually it's not too bad once you break it down. So we start off, we're just going to try and move the character. So we're adding in a new part, make it green so we can see it. We'll move it over here. We'll anchor this part and turn off Can't Collide, okay? And we can even name it Destination if we like. Okay, and then back into our AI script, we're going to create a few variables. So we can say local Teddy will be equal to script.parent, and local humanoid will be equal to Teddy.humanoid, okay? And then if we want it to move, all we need to do is call a function on the humanoid. So humanoid, and we can use the move to function, and this takes a position. So we could use like a vector 3 value, but we can actually use the position of that part we just added. So we can say workspace dot destination. Of course, he's got our animations. So what we need to do is we need to go into the workspace, find our character, and copy the animate script. This is added by default. Remember.
So I've got my essay written, and I've been working on it for about a week. So now I'm going to show you how I use Grammarly to edit. Okay, so here's my essay, and I'm going to click through Grammarly suggestions in the right panel. Your sentence may be unclear or hard to follow. Consider rephrasing. Well, that's true. This is much better. You know, I didn't know my writing contained so many run-on sentences until I started using Grammarly. Okay, this paragraph may be too long. Consider starting a new one here. It is too long. And that is the perfect spot to break it up. Let's add a comma here. You know, affect and effect always get me. Okay, so now we're done editing, and now it's time.
Hello. Hello folks, Gnomecode here, back with the next episode. I've been reading all your awesome suggestions for what should I add to the series, so after careful consideration of the options, I've suggestions for what should I add to the series. So after careful consideration of the options, I found the perfect idea. But wait, I hear you say, isn't that actually referring to the last series? Well, details schmeetails, on with the video! Okay, so we're continuing where we left off with this kind of maze thing. Although I've repositioned it a little bit to add some little room in between, and we're going to add in some doors. So I'm going to add in a part and sort of reposition it to a sort of door shape. Now I went for the wood texture here, which can be a risky business, as anyone who's ever seen the wood reviewer on Twitter will be aware of, who will incessantly complain unless you fix your wood grain to be in the correct direction. So once my wood grain direction was suitably fixed, I then grouped them together into a model and then added an extra part which could function as our keyhole, and even added on a lock decal to make things look suitably jazzy. Finally, once the masterpiece was complete, it was time to add in the script. Okay, so we're just going to start off by creating a variable for the model itself. This just tells it that whenever we refer to door model, we're meaning the parent of this script. The next thing you want to do is you want to detect whenever anything touches the keyhole. So we can say door model dot keyhole, seeing as that's what I've named the part. And then I want to detect when anything touches it, so we say dot touched and connect it in to a function which is going to take as a parameter hit. And that hit will equal whatever is the thing that is touching it. So what do we actually want to do here? Well, we want to detect when something touches it and then we want to open the door. And there's a few ways of doing this, but the simplest way of all would probably be just to destroy the model entirely. So whenever the door is touched, let's just destroy it. Let's see what that looks like. As soon as I touch the part, the door's going to open. And there we go, we can walk in. Now, that's rubbish for several reasons, isn't it? One, it's not very exciting, and two, well, I can just open it automatically. What we really want is some kind of key. So let's go ahead and create a key for ourselves, shall we? So we added in a cylinder and then a second one negated to create this ring type object with the union tool. Since we want this key to function as an item that players can actually carry, we need to rename the part to handle with a capital H and then place it inside of a tool object so the player can actually carry it around. Once I've done this, I then place the tool into starter pack so the player will then spawn with the item. got the tool down here, and when I press 1 to select it, we then have the key in our hand. Now, the positioning isn't quite right on it, so what if we go into our character name code, and we select the tool, and you'll see there's these different grip options: grip forward, grip position, grip right, grip up, and so on, and we can adjust them, and the key will shift position. There's probably a better way of doing this. Maybe there's a plugin or something, but I just kind of do this by trial and error until I find the kind of position that I want, and then I go from there. And now I've ended up with something that looks a bit more like a key. Oh, I'm being killed by the teddy. So the next thing we need to do is we want this key to actually interact with this keyhole that we've added onto the door. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our script, and instead of just instantly destroying it, we want to